Lan's giving us the thumbs up. I'm going to wait for it to show up on Instagram because I get to manually turn that on. All right, we're live on YouTube. Thank you, Google. Oh, we're live on Instagram on the beingdads.today channel. All right, Lan, does everything look good? All right, thumbs up. All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. I'm going to turn down the music here. That was fun. All right, we got everything working. Hey, Sean, how's it going?
Hey, Ryan. Good. Early in the morning. Nice to see you.
Yeah, 6 a.m. here on the West Coast, Vancouver. It's May 30th, and we had some scheduling conflicts. Thomas is traveling in the U.S. with one of his daughters. Big trip. She's looking at some schools there to attend. She's high-level gymnastics and being offered some scholarships. So big opportunity, big trip for dad and daughter. So he's not able to make it today. Unfortunately, my good friend Sean, we were jamming. What did you say last night we were doing? We were
scheming.
John and I were scheming in his backyard in the sun yesterday, talking about life and business and some new ideas. And it dawned on me that I didn't want to speak to the camera all on my own today. That might not be great for everybody else either. So I asked Sean if he would be willing and interested to come on live in 12 hours. And he said, sure. So
why not?
Here we are. And for those who don't know Sean, you can look him up on LinkedIn. But, well, I know him as a great friend, and we've spent a lot of time on ski hills together and in car rides. We drove our boys to Invermere through all weather conditions like blizzard and ice and pouring rain and sunshine. For 10 hours, gripping the steering wheel, alternating back and forth to get our boys to a ski competition earlier this year. So yeah, we're pretty dedicated dads. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time together. Sean's achieved some amazing things in his life that we'll share in the bio there. And yeah, thanks, Sean, for who you are and for being here and for joining me.
Well, thanks, Ryan, too, for this opportunity. It's I always enjoy our chats, and we've covered a lot of miles together, and we found some common ground about how we think about our kids. And there's something about freestyle skiing that really gets you to think about, commitment to parenting, the immense logistics, the immense commitment required just to get them on the ski hill so they can even explore the sport. It's just an astonishing environment and experiment for a parent.
Yeah, right. Like that. I have thought this many times and said it many times. It seems to me one of the most logistically involved sports I know, and I've played a lot of sports. Like with you got weather, so you've always got to be looking at the weather in terms of what the gear is going to look like. Especially if you're traveling now, like our trip to Invermere. I mean, you went and got winter tires the day of
the day before I had to buy snow tires because looking at the forecast, and then the storm forecast caused us to change our itinerary. We left the day earlier, booking hotels from the road, trying to get ahead of the storm.
It's funny because we've been in it for so many years that it just seems like, well, that's just what you do. But maybe not. That's not what you do for every sport. Like my daughter, my eldest, plays volleyball, and weather's not a factor for volleyball typically.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many dimensions to freestyle skiing. There's the transport. The hills are always away from where you live. There's the weather, and you need to monitor the weather. It's not just about weather at the ground level; it's also weather up the mountain, and so that informs your clothing. And you have to make sure the kids have the right clothing, and the weather will change, so they need spare clothing. And then there's the skis. There are special skis. It's not just ordinary skis. There's skis with twin tips, and then they usually trash at least one pair during a season. So you probably need two pairs of skis.
And you're fixing them.
We've talked about that. We've done that too. Swapped stories about marine epoxy.
Yeah, I've learned a lot more about ski repair than I thought I would ever know.
And there's this whole So you understood the equipment, and there's this whole cultural element to freestyle skiing, which I find fascinating. It requires such a financial commitment from the family. But the culture of freestyle is counter. It's about freedom. The park element of skiing with the rails and the jumps, it attracts a certain mindset of kid. Mine's dyslexic, and there's a lot of dyslexic ADHD type kids who do this sort of thing. And so you have coaches who come from that community. So these are kind of unstructured, creative, free flowing type kids. But in order to do the sport, you need type A parents who can make enough money to have enough organizational skill to get them onto the hill at the right time with the right gear, the right equipment. So it's this hilarious juxtaposition of type A parents and whatever type B kids at the same time.
Yeah, you pointed it out before, and you're right. It's fascinating because that's what you want in the sport for them, is this creative expression, and to feel like they can do their art without limits. And yet, yes, to be able to afford and get the kid to these events requires a tremendous amount of logistics that can't be completely free, because it needs some direction, it needs some boundaries, it needs some dates and times and budgets and all this good stuff.
And the time, the time commitment. I mean, both our kids are at a level now where we're talking about a full year, commitment.
Right. Signed up now. Yep.
Sign up now. The season starts the 1st of June.
Ski season, starts the 1st of June here in the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah.
So there's there's fitness training, there's baseline testing, and then there's trampoline training, and then there's water ramp training, and then you go somewhere where that you can ski for a few days or a week during the summer, and then there's airbag training, and then you get on the ski slopes, and then
there's a trip to a ski slope in July, which I had never thought would be possible. There's a potential trip in July to Oregon to ski on snow.
Yeah.
Which I was like, wait, what? And apparently they have snow 10 months a year.
So from a parent perspective, suddenly it's dawned on me and my wife, and we're sitting around the kitchen table at night going, what have we gotten ourselves into? Where it's like it's a full year commitment. And practically every weekend there's something that you've got to do. So we're in order to help our kids pursue their passions, where it's the whole family's oriented towards this thing. And
how many days did Chris say it is? 150 something days of training?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I've shared this with Thomas before. Like, I think your approach and ours is very similar. Like, this is what the kids want, right? Like, I never did freestyle skiing. This is not something I know, or I'm not putting this on him. Like, you must be this freestyle skier. No, it's all him. I even checked with him. I'm like, I got off that call that we had, that parent call, and I was like, whoa, this is a bit of a step up from the previous team that our sons were on. Right. And I was like, just so you know, this is what the program looks like for the year. Do you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, Dad, I'm all in. And I was like, okay, well, if you are, then I guess I gotta be like, I'm here to support you, man. So what do you need?
Yeah, we've talked about the kind of the head filling complexity of freestyle skiing, particularly for a parent, but also we haven't talked about the benefits yet. And I think there's something really amazing about the benefits of first of all, helping your child pursue, competition at a certain level, helping them be the best they can be. And freestyle skiing is also about managing risks. I mean, that the things they do, double, triple flips in the air, it requires, first of all, a long journey to get there. It takes several years of training to get to that level. And it also requires
winging it.
No, not at all. And a process of managed risk, right? The coaches help them set goals and then set a pathway to get those goals. And I don't know about your son, but my eldest son has no fear. So if you're if we're at a lake, he'll go to the top of the cliff and jump off it into the water. And so this sport is helping them set goals and understand what the risks are and manage those risks in a way that is quite helpful. So I'm hoping, and then I'll stop talking. This total family commitment, this orientation of our time and our resources, um, and the sacrifices that we're making will give them this experience about competing at a relatively high level, um, and in a way to get good at something that they want to get good at, and in a way of managing risks that'll generate life lessons that they'll be able to apply in other areas of their life. Not just about creating a love for sport, but learning about something that they can apply, you know, once they leave the sport, or if they leave the sport.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I'll just maybe reflect back several things I heard there. One, I totally agree that I think it's been super valuable for me, and I can see that with my kids and your kids. Like when they find something they love, to be able to help them pursue that, and to to help them become their best in that, whatever that looks like. I just think is a phenomenal endeavor, right? Because that, in my opinion, because I've experienced this with my own pursuits when I was at that age. I think that really helps transition to anything in life, where it's like, oh, I'm passionate about this.
Mm.
Okay, well, I can lean on my training that I had back when I was a kid. I'm like, okay, you don't just become the best at it right away. You got to practice. You got to put in the time. You got to be disciplined. You got to show up. You got to commit. You got to, there's all these things that go into that pursuit that I think are transferable to so many things in life, that whether it's skiing or whether it's volleyball or whether it's soccer or whether it's music or art, or to me, it doesn't really matter the activity, but more so about uncovering that passion and then learning how to pursue it in a really fun, healthy way.
Yeah, I think there's two things I want to say. One is about passion, and one about the courage involved in this particular sport. But um, it's I'm very pleased that my eldest, and my younger one to a certain lesser extent, but both of them have found something that they're very passionate about, and it's something that they can own. Freestyle skiing is something that my eldest son, none of his friends do it to the extent that he does it. He's made new friends on the team and stuff, but he's got something that he can own. He's not a football jock. He's not going to be the captain of the basketball team. He's not going to be, on the honor roll, but he's got something that he loves, and so his identity is growing based on this kind of solid foundation of something he's passionate about. Um, the other thing is that this particular sport requires courage. I mean, I never did anything as remotely complex or challenging as what they do now. I mean, imagine a 12-year-old kids, we both have 12-year-olds standing at the top of a mountain, 45 degrees down, and there's, a crowd of people and an announcer. And, there's like probably 200 people watching you go down this hill and go over this jump. And, you're floating in the air for like 3 seconds doing a tricky aerial maneuver. I mean, it's astonishing the courage that's required for them to do that and for them to step up and so.
Yeah, and that is a phenomenal life skill to learn too, right? Like sometimes they haven't even done that trick before. Like I've listened to those interviews of the guys at the X Games, and I know my son tried this at the last comp too. He's like, yeah, I just learned that this morning. The calls to when you're in front of an audience and you have 2 runs. And I can't remember the guy that I listened to who was interviewed about the X Game. He's like, yeah, I never even landed that one before in practice. And yet here he is, this important run in theory. And he's like, yeah, I think I got this. I think that's,
I think we're talking about the things that we love about the sport and our theories of change inside our minds as we are dads about what our kids are gaining from this participation.
Yeah.
It helps me feel better about the total family commitment required in order to deliver this experience to our children, right?
Well, I see it as and I have 3 kids and they're going in 3 different directions, so they aren't all in freestyle skiing. So I mean, so volleyball at the level my daughter wants to pursue it at is also an all-in commitment. And I also realized that weather isn't a factor for the game, but her tournaments are away. So weather was a factor when we went to Kamloops because there was a blizzard on the pass coming home. And so we were looking at staying another night. We were looking at rechanging our whole itinerary. This is going to impact the Monday workday for some people. We looked at rerouting around the mountain pass for an extra like hour and a half driving. And in the end, we just decided, well, we checked all the webcams and we were like, all right, we can. So we did it. It was a little sketchy, but we made sure that we weren't putting obviously the convoy at risk. But again, same thing. As we flew to Edmonton a couple weeks ago, the logistics of 1,800 teams playing at this national level tournament over a 2-week period, like again, a whole other realm of. I was just blown away at this expo in Edmonton. There's 80 courts playing simultaneously.
Wow.
And so and just getting into that world, she's training now. She wants to go to the gym 3 days a week. We've got a friend, a personal trainer that wants to learn how to jump higher. She's got private coaching with a coach. She's got these camps, these trials. She's got beach coming up. I mean, this is all stuff she wants, and it's also a fairly high level of commitment. So yeah, I get, like you're saying, like as a family, how do you look at it? How do you manage time? How do you manage resources? How do you manage money? How do you manage energy? Is there an allocation Mint here? Because I used to use Mint. I use Monarch now. I could tell you to the cent how much I spend on volleyball and how much I spend on skiing. And, it's not the same, but like, could I measure it that way? Should I measure kilometers driven? Should I measure time at event? It's an interesting, thought experiment.
Yeah. It's also about attention and bandwidth. I mean, we're relatively newcomers to Vancouver. I lived in the UK for 22 years and just moved back to Canada 3 years ago, coming up on our 3rd anniversary. And so we're new here, and we're meeting new people and making new friends. But this commitment is also influencing the extent to which we have bandwidth to explore our new city and make new connections. It's something I don't wish to sound like I'm begrudging it, because I'm not, but there's a realization of the what it means to be a father in enabling your child to have this sort of experience.
Sure. Yeah, you've got a startup that you're running, helping run, and we've got our own health to consider, and wives, and friends, like you're saying, and other hobbies and passions that we want to pursue. I think that's a very real, internal dialogue for us dads. Like, how do we manage it all? Like, what's the right balance? Where do I put my time? Where do I put my money? Where do I put, what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Keeping yourself healthy enough so you can keep going, making enough money and being effective enough in your career so that you can, make it all happen.
Yeah.
Being a contributor to the family, doing the meals, making sure that we're thinking ahead. There's a lot of balls to keep juggling.
Yeah. I will say this, just to go back on how to my perspective that I guess I'm getting with some of these things is like, this is a life education, like if I think about their pursuits, like if we just talk back on skiing here, like you said, for your son there, it might not be, he's not all in on school and he's not all in on other sports, but this he is. And, we're talking about some of these great benefits for them, right? Being able to manage risk, being able to, when it's on the line, you have 2 runs and you've got a crowd of people, like that used to terrify me. I mean, I used to, this is embarrassing. When I used to play the violin, my parents sent me in violin lessons.
You're a violinist. Huh?
I was like 7. I was like 7. All right. So I played the violin and I was so shy and I was so self-conscious that the only way I would play in front of my family, like we had some relatives, I still remember this. We had some relatives over and I had to go in this mud room with the door closed, but the door had like slots in it. And so I had to play in there so they could hear me and not see me. So that's, and I also played piano, and I was in a recital, and I was so nervous. And then the song, I had to put the pedal down a lot for the song, and I was so nervous that my foot was shaking. and I couldn't keep the pedal down. And so the whole song was just screwed up. But like, you know, for them to have now this experience where they're like you're saying, they're like staring down a slope at a 60-foot high jump with people all around them, and they're in their head going, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Like, I don't know what that, I don't know what it, like, to put a price on that learning for them is, I don't know, it's invaluable. And to learn all these things they're learning about health and mindset and sleep and training and taking care of their body and recovery and rest. And it is an interesting, well, I think any of these sports are interesting. Like, they're learning how to pursue it individually, and they're on a team. And there is a lot of that team element. Like, I love to see these sports, like volleyball is the same. I love how much they support each other, you know, on that team. Like, they're all genuinely excited when they see someone do something. They're like, oh, and they're all clapping their poles. And I love that.
Mm. What I struggle with is how to make, like, how to decide how much of this to make explicit. You know, they're kids. We're sitting around the dinner table. My youngest one does something stupid on the trampoline and injures his foot, which influences the plans that we've been making for the month. And I'm like, okay, don't get mad. You know, stay calm. You know,
Right.
You know. But there's a raging voice inside of me going, do you know how much we've planned the next month? And, you know, you idiot,
Right.
what were you doing on the trampoline? And, you know, can't you see that this is like our whole family commitment to helping this happen? And, yeah. So how, you know, what I struggle with as a dad is what to say, how to frame things, you know, instill a growth mindset. Oh, it's all right. You know, you try stuff in the trampoline. Sometimes these accidents happen, you know,
Sure.
And how to keep them growing in the direction where they get the benefits that we've just articulated.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a very real frustration, right? Because there's so many things hinging on, like, well, how many times did we plan for a competition and then something happened? Someone's injured, right? That your eldest, he was injured for, was it this? Which one was that? The second one, right? When was that? Was that last year? I don't know.
Yeah. One of them broke his elbow. I forget. Yeah.
So you have all these plans. You've got a place booked. Oh yeah, that was at Sun Peaks, right? You had the place booked.
Yeah.
And you got injured, and now scramble to find someone to take the place. You had 2 rooms, right? So the injuries could just throw, like you're saying right now, the whole plan that we figured out the window.
Yeah.
And so it is frustrating, you know. Yeah. And I guess where I'm at today is it's a very real emotion, and I'm doing a better job of first noticing it. So my coach, Kevin, gave me a really simple formula for when you're in something like that, for getting out of it quickly. It's not about denying that it's there. It's about, okay, so notice it, name it, and honor it, appreciate it, accept it. Like, okay, I'm frustrated right now. I'm not sure if we're allowed to swear. I guess we can. It's our show. We're frustrated. I'm frustrated right now, and I can name, like, I noticed it. I'm frustrated. I'm heated. I name it. I'm frustrated, and then, okay, like, I am, I'm not going to deny it, because then that builds resent within, you know, ourselves. So it's like, okay, and then what I am doing a better job of, I think, because I totally get what you're saying. I've done this before, and I'm sure I'll do it again. Is to let them know why I'm frustrated, like just the impact it's having on me, but in a way, like, guilt and shame are the if you, there's a scale of emotions and the impact it has on people. On the negative side of things, shame and guilt are the 2 that have the most negative impacts on someone's, like, energy and state.
Interesting.
So what I do a lot more and a lot better job at is making sure I'm not intentionally making, like, sometimes I don't know I'm doing it, but I'm very cognizant of not making them feel shame and guilt, because that's just going to put them in a really bad state. And if they're in a bad state, then the whole conversation, the ability to solve problems, to have discussions, goes out the window. So I'll let them know, but in a way, like I'll joke about it. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Like we just planned this whole trip. And so I'll make it light, but I'll make it noticed. Like I'll make it like, this is the reality of it. Right. Like, and you know, I find that the more these things happen and they're aware of them, the more they start to realize the consequences. Like I want them to learn what the direct consequences are of their actions. Like my daughter youngest wanted to really go on the trampoline last night. And that was after going to dance and then after a play date and then after going to the playground. And then she still wanted to go on the trampoline at 9:30 at night because she wants to learn how to do her front flip.
Mm.
And I let her know, I'm like, look, you have run club in the morning that you want to, this is all her. She wants to win the commitment award. She's gone every single one and it's earlier than normal. And I said, look, if you're up late tonight, you're at risk of missing your run tomorrow, run club, and missing commitment and missing out and getting this commitment. So just, I'm doing my best to educate them so that they're empowered to make these choices and decisions for themselves and understand the full impact of the consequences as good as I can articulate them. And then it's not on me all the time. They start to go to town on thinking, oh yeah, right. If I do this, then, you know, dad can't do this for me. If I do this, then I'm going to knock myself out of this. And like, it's amazing, even at a young age, how their brains go to work on like, yeah, these are things that they want. And they're really good at getting what they want, right? Like kids from early age know how to get what they want. So if they are clear on what they want, they're very good at figuring out how to get it, negatively or positively.
There's so much in that. Helping kids. I agree with you. My youngest, really wanted to get ice cream last night, and I was like, "There's no way you're getting ice cream." And then 3 hours later, he's like coming into my room with a big chocolate ice cream stain all over his mouth, with a big smile on his face. But yeah, helping them, figure out what they want, and then helping them achieve it. Or building upon that latent in internal ability to get what they want for larger goals in life. I mean, that's huge, right?
That's a superpower every kid has. Like at a very young age, they know how to turn on the water taps. They know how to, my daughter didn't want to leave the playground last night, and her and her friend, and it was me and another dad, and we're like, no, we got to go. I promised my other son, or my only son, I promised my son, I don't use their names that often. I promised my son that we would go to Michael's because for another reason, him and some of the Freestyle guys are making merch. So he wanted to go buy these iron-on vinyl things for their hoodies. I promised him that I would take them before Michael's closed. So I was like to my youngest, we got to go. Her and her buddy turned on the water taps. Like they were just bawling and throwing a tantrum. And me and the other dad, we looked at them, we're like, girls, like, we know what you're doing here. You're doing this to get what you want. And they learn very quickly how to get it. So just for me, I'm realizing more and more like how to turn that superpower into getting them what they want, but and maybe not having a meltdown. Maybe that's not always the healthiest way to get it. Like just tell me what you want. I'll usually give it to you, but just don't make up this whole elaborate story and fake all these things just to try and get it. There's a real tantrum, then I'll honor and give her time to express. But in this case, you could just tell they were totally faking what they were doing.
That your point also about guilt and shame, I think are really significant. It depends kind of on the culture of the family, if the family sort of leans towards some negativity or leans toward positivity, I think that the existence of those emotions will vary. But I think it's a very interesting point about how powerful those emotions are. I mean, my mom used to make me feel guilty. She was very good at creating guilt trips in order to get me to do what she wanted.
Right. The whole thing, guilt trip. Right.
Yeah. Parents are good at doing guilt trips, but the implication of that on the psychology of the child, I think is something I don't know enough about, but I think it's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Like fear can be a great motivator, and I wouldn't say fear is the same as guilt, but in a good way, fear can motivate, right? Like they do need to understand like the worst case that's possible. Like I think there's a danger in living in that positivity all the time too. Not super negative all the time, not super positive all the time, because if you ignore the real fears that are possible. Like if we just go back to freestyle skiing, like there's a very real risk that they can break their neck. And I think that's, that's important for them to learn and be educated on. Right? You don't want to ignore that and go, oh, just if you do everything, it'll be fine all the time. And I don't think it's safe to bury your head in the sand and ignore those things. Like with my eldest, like I'll quickly go to some of the worst things that could happen and educate her on those. Again, not in an irrational way, like you're going to get struck by lightning or some UFOs are going to abduct you, but like a real risk of like there's some kids drinking, like, and they're getting close to being able to drive, like, and your son can drive, like that. There's a very high probability if someone's been drinking and is a new driver and you get in the car with them that there's going to be a problem like that. You can just go and find the data on that. Like that's not, I'm not making up a risk. I'm not making up something, but I want her to understand that. So she understands like there could be some fear around that, but just that's a real risk that needs to be understood by her so that she can now go and make good decisions for herself. So I do think fear can motivate, and it can be used in a good way. Like if I even think about the worst case scenario sometimes, I think that can be a really good thing if you can make that, rational and not get not go spiraling down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, so much to say here. Part of this is helping the kids become more self-aware and more conscious. Back to freestyle skiing. It's not like table tennis or soccer where you can just do it for a couple hours a week or whatever. It's such a commitment, and I hope that we're not spoiling our children. So it's how you make them aware of the reasons why we're doing things as a family. Sacrifice is not the right word, but the commitments.
Yeah.
Sacrifice might be a negative word. It might feel guilty, but something about commitment. The commitment required for this, and what we're hoping to achieve, and but also you don't want to spoil it for them, so they're thinking, oh, I have to learn life lessons this weekend because my parents aren't doing anything else but take me skiing, and
right, that puts a external pressure on them.
Yeah. So you got to kind of there's a dance. It's a dance.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. Like I've realized that I don't know, for me, intrinsic motivation is so important, for them and for myself, like, because if they're extrinsically motivated, like if they're feeling the pressure of, oh, I need to do this because XYZ, because my parents paid a lot, or my parents, did all this driving. Like if they feel that external pressure, that also can be felt as, a little bit of guilt, and they're doing it for perhaps someone else, not for themselves. And then therefore, when we're not around, right, when they're older, I believe then that's because I've experienced this myself. When that external motivation goes away, then they're left with, well, how do I get myself excited about doing this now? That's why I believe intrinsic motivation is so valuable for them, because they'll always have that, regardless of whether you and I are around.
How do you foster intrinsic motivation?
Well, that's a good question. So I was at the big light bulb that went off for me, and I was at a Tony Robbins leadership conference. I think pretty sure it was on leadership or Date with Destiny. I don't know. I've been at 12 of them. And I met a dad there, and he was telling me about his son, who might have been like 8 at the time, I think. And he was telling me that his son was on the news because he swam to Alcatraz and back. He's in San Francisco. And apparently, pardon me?
At the age of 8.
I think you can find the news. Just look up kid swim Alcatraz. It's apparently like a thing they do in San Francisco. So it was some incredible swimming event, and whatever the age, whatever the event, it struck me as like, wow, that's incredible. And then the guy was telling me, yeah, like, man, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, yeah, he's the one getting me up at 5 a.m. to go to the pool. He's the one that's doing all these things to get me to do it for him. Like the dad was in a tough spot at the time in life, but the kid was driving this, and I was like, sorry, what? Like the kid's packing his bag, the kid's waiting in the car. I was like, okay, how did you do that? And so even just the awareness that could be possible really turned a light bulb on for me. And I think from that, Like for example, for the skiing, like, you know, my son is sets his own alarm at 12, right? He's getting up, packing his bag. Sometimes night before they're making their lunch. He's the one asking for more training. He's the one saying, "Hey, can I join this next team?" He's the one saying, "Hey, we need a place up there." He's the one saying, "Can I go to more training next week on the trampoline?" Like, so how? I'm gonna need to think about that. What I can say is it's possible. What I can say is I've seen it now in my own kids, and I've seen it now in this kid who swam in Alcatraz. I've seen that it's possible. I believe that my wife and I have fostered that environment here.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the question in my mind is to what extent is have you created that or you nurtured that or enabled it to happen, and how much of that is innate? And your son may have just seen one X game and think, oh, I want to do that, and then how do I get there?
Well, what I'll say because I have a range of ages with my youngest, she wants to do everything. So she's in a very exploratory phase of life. Like I feel like it's kind of like a smorgasbord. She wants to just try it all, right? It's new to her. I mean, you're at the buffet. You've never had all these foods. They look amazing. She just wants to try a little bit of everything. She wants to try fencing and karate and soccer and field hockey and trampolining and gymnastics and And I remember I was like that at her age too. I think the important thing for us is to allow that to happen in a safe, healthy, reasonable way, but to allow them to find their passion first and foremost. For her to go, and because she wants to try all these things, so there is already like an innate desire to learn, to grow, to find new things. I think if we suppress that, it's going to start to shut down that internal desire. And it it can feel like a lot, but it doesn't have to be ridiculous. Like, we lean on each other for driving a lot of times. We have a carpool app that we're now using so that we can all split the driving for going up to Whistler. And I think that I can see this in myself. It took me until I was 12 to find my passion. When I played every sport, I played tennis, basketball, swimming, golf, you name it. And then it wasn't until I was 12 I found hockey, and I had never played it before. Well, barely. I played it when I was 5. I stopped. Started again at 12, dropped everything else pretty much, and played hockey. But my parents let me find my thing. And then when I did, I was all in myself. Like, I went and, shot pucks in the garage, and I went and asked to go to these camps and go to the gym and started working out. Like, I really think it can be, I don't think it has to be complicated. I think it's about helping a kid truly find that thing they're passionate about, like giving them the opportunity. Like, it does take some exposure and find it. And then when it is their thing, I just think it happens. Like, they're going to want they're going to, want to find their way. And my job is to drive them and to fix the skis and to find a way to pay for it. And, I don't know.
So what's running through my mind is a story from I think it's probably a mistake. I haven't really articulated it as a mistake before, but a parenting mistake that I made a few years ago. So we lived in London, England for 22 years. Our kids are born there. They speak like English kids. And in our neighborhood was this very famous music and dance school called the Trinity Laban Dance of School. It's kind of like a Juilliard sort of thing, and they have this, it's university level musical education, concert level instructors. So world class,
High level,
music, yeah. And they have a program where they allow 10 children from the neighborhood a year into the program, and it starts at like the age of 3, and they have these classes, with for children, and you can ride it all the way from the age of 3 right through to university. So this was an amazing opportunity. The parents talked about it in the neighborhood, and I tried to get my eldest in, but on the waiting list, and just didn't figure out the complicated things about how to get him in. So I failed there. But maybe they knew that I had tried so hard for my eldest one. So when the youngest one's time came along 4 years later, we got him in, and this felt like a real ticket, because the musical education that you get is world class, and you can it can become part of your portfolio. You can get scholarships too, and then the way education works in the UK, it's, there are good schools and not so good schools, and everybody tries to get their kids into the good schools, and what's their CV look like, and if they've got if they're a well accomplished musician, then that improves their chances to get to get to the right school, blah blah blah. So I was already thinking about this. My child was 3 years old. I'm thinking, okay, this is it. He's in. We just got to ride this through.
Right.
So it went on for a few years, and then he got to the age where the program moved from Friday afternoons to Saturday mornings, and it was from 9 till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was just here's my 8-year-old son every Saturday morning for several hours, and there's he played the cellos, playing the cello in the orchestra, doing special movement classes to get to kind of connect your body to the music, composition classes. I mean, there were four different events every day, every morning, and I'm like, this is awesome. He's going to be such a good musician, and but it wasn't driven by him. It was driven by me. And my wife's like, I'm not sure that he really likes this so much. And then my son's beginning like, Dad, I want to play soccer on Saturday mornings. This is like too much like school. I got school 5 days a week, and then I got to go to school on Saturdays. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going to be such a good musician. And if you could just ride this through, you'll be able to get a scholarship to a great university, and you'll be set for life. And this is world class. And I saw the other lots of Tiger parents in children of Tiger parents in the program, and I saw lots of professional musicians in whose children are in the program.
Right.
But eventually it led to this moment where he just wasn't practicing, and he didn't want to do it. And my wife's like, you've got to stop this, and I'm like, and so for 6 months I was getting angry, and I was like, come on, can't you guys see this is important? This is our opportunity, because where we live, we're lucky enough to get this thing. But eventually I capitulated and realized at the same time that I was making a mistake, that I was creating an experience that perhaps is negative for him. Like he's, so yeah, I mean, I still reflect on that moment, that it was, an opportunity that we were able to seize upon, but it wasn't an opportunity that he necessarily wanted. But then he was so young. How could he really understand? And I saw in the other children, they weren't necessarily saying, Daddy, take me to 3 hours of school on Saturday morning so that I can, do all these classes. I mean, they were the same, but I don't know whether the Tiger parents, if you call them that, were it wasn't a question of whether you were allowed to like it or not like it. This is just how we lived.
Sure.
We live this way because we do music on Saturday mornings, and you practice and you commit, and this just, there's no option of this being something that you like or don't like. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I'm glad that we made the decision that we did. I think that probably it has still affected my youngest one, and that he's reluctant to try new things because he's afraid I'm gonna, his Tiger parent dad's gonna say, right, you're gonna do this for the next 10 years, but I think that also plays into how sports are organized in Canada, and can you do something for fun, or do you have to like be in a track where you're going to go to the NHL? And if you don't go to the track, if you don't go to the NHL, then you have to quit the sport. And there's,
I know exactly what you're. Yeah, I think I know exactly where you're coming from. There is, I mean, but and you're coming from a place that's, I sense you're coming from a place that's genuine. Like you want the best for your son. Right, like that's what I feel like. All these parents are doing their best. They think that this is a great avenue, and it might be for some kids. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like a phenomenal program. And what I hear is just this genuine intention, which is amazing, right? And it sounds like a great thing. It sounds like a great learning opportunity that you guys had, or learning moment that you had, because he realized what he doesn't like. You realized that it wasn't working. Like you could have kept him in it, right? That might have been the mistake. if you had just kept going and forced it, right? Like that, you would change though the direction, which seems like a great thing ultimately.
Yeah, and I think that my wife and I weren't totally aligned on whether this was the right avenue to pursue.
Mhm.
She's more like, well, he doesn't really like it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, he's too young to know whether he likes it or not, you know.
Right. Well, and I think, there is that debate around like how early will they know?
Mm,
Like they know really early on that they love ice cream. They know that they really are early on that they they love, Pokemon. They learn really like I do think very early on they know what they like.
mm,
Some of it we can help them understand that like eating candy all the time isn't like, going to be very good for you, and here's why. And you'll notice it when it happens. Like you're gonna feel like crap and you're gonna throw up. And so I think there's, anyways, you could go down that rabbit hole. Back to the, it's funny that there's that name Tiger Parent, but you and I were talking about this last night. The long-term athlete development model. I I hope more parents become aware of this, because when I
mm,
did
mm,
through the ski team, I just was like, oh my goodness. And I've coached my youngest soccer team last year, and so I went through 3 hours of training with Soccer Canada, and in that training is a heavy focus on the long-term athlete development model. And I wish Alan was still here. He has another call that he's joined
mm,
at 6:30, so he could put it up on screen right now, which would be really cool.
mm,
But so the long term, and you and I have jammed about this. The long-term athlete development model was super helpful for me as a parent. The coaches know this a lot of times, or at least they should, about what type of training is best for the age and gender of the child.
mm,
And sometimes that system that you're talking about of music, that seems like a lot that early, in
mm,
terms of, because the whole point of the long-term athlete development model, and it doesn't even, I don't even think it matters if we're talking athletics. It doesn't matter if it's music or art or any passion, pursuit of a passion, is it needs to be fun early on.
for
It needs to
sure.
be fun. It needs to be
Mm,
social. Like my daughter loves soccer, my youngest, and she was the first U7 kid in the academy program, and she loves soccer, and she doesn't like going because none of her friends are there.
mm,
It has to be social, and it's a lot of drills and skills, and it's not as fun as our
mm,
other practices. And she's like, she'd rather go to baseball, even though she really doesn't like baseball. But all her friends are there, and they're out
mm.
doing cartwheels and picking flowers in the field, and she's having a blast.
Yeah.
And at that age,
Mm,
it's not the right time to drill drills into them, because she's not going to want to play anymore. I mean, this
mm,
happened to me. I was 5 and I was very good at hockey, and it was not fun, and I quit. And for 7, I had a 7-year gap. Other kids had 7 years on me by the time I started playing again at 12.
mm,
Had it been fun, and had I got to play with my friends, I would have had 7 years on the ice, and then who knows what would happen. Like, I was pretty good even with starting at 12. But I think, and people can go and look up the long-term athlete development model. I think it's
mm,
super important as a parent to understand psychologically, emotionally, physically, what is the best type of training to create that long-term development. Because I think, in my opinion, if you crank up the seriousness and the drills and the skills and all that too early, the kid's going to quit,
mm,
or they're not going to have fun. They're not going to be motivated to do it. Therefore, it's going to require all this external motivation. In my experience, if it's fun early on, like my daughter is the one, like she's ready at the door to go to run club. She's ready at the door, and she'll get her. My youngest will get herself up, dressed, ready to go into run club because it's something she wants to do.
man.
I think if they find those things and they're allowed to, and it's done in this model, I didn't create this thing, and it's a developmental model that's right for their age level, and it's age appropriate training, and it's fun, and it needs to be fun all the way through, in my opinion. And it's about, like, competition in that model isn't until like 15, like really about competition, like so that
Mm,
they understand the psychology of it and the mindset of it and get really used to losing and winning. But that's like at 15. Like, competition's still good early on, but it's less about the winning and the losing, and it's more about like just doing your best. And when maybe a little bit of pressure's on, but it still needs to be fun. And then winning mindset isn't even until like 18.
mm.
And yet like you said, tiger parents, and I'm not going to judge anyone, but it can in different kids, some kids love winning. Okay, fine. But I'm not going to force it on them at 6 years old, right? But if they love it, then fine. Don't take that away from them too. I think that's the thing that we do is like, oh, everybody's a winner and here's a ribbon. I don't think that's good either. If you got a kid who genuinely loves winning, okay, great.
Mm.
But yeah, that long-term athlete development model I think is super valuable for parents. I share it with the soccer parent group. I shared it with the freestyle group. I shared it with the volleyball group because I'm the manager on the team there. And I just think it's super helpful for parents to just relax sometimes and know that the best thing for their, because everyone's trying to still do the best thing for their kids, but to know that the best thing could be, let's just have a little bit more fun with it.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you have this kind of long-term, perspective in mind, what's your job as a parent is equip them for,
life.
successful life, whatever that is, happy life or effective life, or one in which they're able to survive, on their own. Then that's about a long-term love of sport and being able to be on teams and be able to set goals and achieve goals. Is winning is a very small part of that. And if they win, yeah, and just loving movement and being as you say, taking care of your body, being fit. And maybe winning too soon is might not necessarily be a good thing. Is you get put into these tracks where you're going to the NHL, or you're going to the NBA, or you're going to the Canadian ski team or whatever. That's nice to have, but most people don't get to those elite levels, and
the percentages are very small.
Yeah, but all of those sports, freestyle skiing included, survive and want as many people as possible to do the sport. So
yeah, and they're set up sometimes to create that funnel, right, to go on to those higher levels. Meanwhile, the 99% of the people that don't, hopefully they realize the value they've still gotten, even if they didn't get to that level, like in terms of how valuable all that pursuit's been.
Yeah, it's like maybe the pinnacle, the funnel should be like aside. It's beside the sport, not the top of the sport. It's beside the sport. Oh, you're a competitor. Oh, you do well in the competition. That's great. But me and 99% of the other kids in the sport are over here, and we're having fun. And
sure. I do think that's the freestyle group. I like that they have that recreational group. That is, I feel like their structure actually kind of works like that, right? Like the biggest group of 250 kids was purely recreational. And then you're right, there was, our boys were on the development team, and then there's the performance, whatever the team after that. So they're in the BC team. So there is actually, parallel structures there, which I think work, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that in all sports, but I think that really works well. Like for me, I started playing soccer again at 44 last year, and when I was 45, and it's just fun. Like it's co-ed, it's scheduled. There's a coach, but there's no, like, we don't keep score. Well, some people keep score. I don't keep score. It's 2 hours of pure running back and forth on the field in all weather, and it's great. It's it's competition. Sure, I'm getting better and making less of a fool of myself, and it's but it's not about winning. There is a whole league for adults that is, but I'm like, at this age and for what I want in terms of fitness and goals and stuff like that, that's not. But you're right. It's over here. It's a separate thing if I wanted to go down that path. But over here is a recreational group. That's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, and equal life lessons in both the pathways. I mean, as a parent, it doesn't really matter which track your child is in.
Yeah, I think if it's something they love, they're having fun, they're being healthy, they're learning about, still, like, I'm still out there learning about how to get better. The coach is sending us, he's doing his best. He's sending us, oh wait, I didn't check the chat on here. Oh, never mind. Spam. What was I saying? Oh yeah, like I'm still learning all these great things. I'm still learning how to improve. The coach is sending us tips. For me, it's a really good VO2 max workout, like high intensity. Like I even wore a heart rate monitor on Monday to see what my heart rate was at. So I think it's a really good sport for me for side to side agility. Like I'm getting all these other benefits, and I could care less about the score, really. So I think it's mind. I think it's awareness, right? Like, yeah, I think if kids can be helped to find something they love, if parent and kid can realize potentially all the benefits of that pursuit and make it about those things, and then winning becomes this, side benefit eventually later on in their development.
It's so paradoxical as a parent, because you think about the world that we're leaving our children, and you if you were to really think through, the implications of climate change and resource constraints and overpopulation, you'd turn to Sarah Connor doing like chin-ups in your jail cell, getting ready for the coming apocalypse, right? And making your children do push-ups with you, and making them be able to eat grass, because that's all they're going to be able to eat when they get older. But that's not going to lead to an effective life. It's the fulfilled life. It's the kids. So you've got this mindsets about what you're trying to do as a parent, but also the effective way of doing it is not about really
eating grass.
Revealing too much about how you think about the future, and hoping that they'll be that they'll be happy in the future, and be able to make a contribution.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be better movies made about the future, because there's so many that are about like this doomsday scenario, like Terminator, and one of my favorite movies, The Matrix. I mean, it's a pretty dark world that they've painted a picture of in the future, and iRobot, and I mean, there's so many of these, dark versions of what happens. But I think that's good. I think those are possibilities. Do you know what I mean? Like those are, like we were saying before, like those are worst case scenarios. Sure. If we, just give our power over to the machines, fine. I think there needs to be a lot more movies though about like, well, what would the best case scenario be? Like what if we did everything this way? Why isn't there a whole category of movies like that? I don't know. It's like, why is the news just bad news all the time?
But I think that's a superpower that you can impart upon your kids is it's not just about the growth mindset. It's also about imagining, plausible futures.
Sure.
And choosing a future that you would desire, and helping, even just imagining that and thinking that's the future that I would like, makes it become more possible, more likely.
Yeah, that was I'm halfway through a book on Einstein's, like biography on him. That was one of his superpowers, was his imagination. At like, I don't remember, 7 years old, he was thinking about, boy, what would it be like to ride on a beam of light? And that's where his math came from, though, was a passion and a curiosity, and it started with imagination, though. And so he imagined that possibility, and then figured it out many years later mathematically, and then even couldn't prove it physically, but then someone else had to go and then scientifically actually prove it. But yeah, for a kid to be allowed and able to be creative and imaginative could lead to the next Einstein. Yeah. So let's see, we're at 2 minutes left. Goes quick, huh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I appreciate you, Sean, and I appreciate you coming on such short notice.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate our friendship and our conversations, and hopefully this has been helpful to the two people that have joined us live here today. And my buddy did say, holy cow, actually, there's a lot of people on the live. Hey, guys, on Instagram. Okay.
Oh.
There were. Yeah, great. There's probably 12 people over there that came through. But yeah, Alan was going to show the very first podcast that Gary Vaynerchuk did and just how bad it looked and was. So, hey, we're getting better. We're learning. We're improving. We got a growth mindset. So thank you, Sean.
My pleasure. Ryan, that was fun.
Appreciate it. I'll see you probably tomorrow. Take the boat out. And yes, thanks, everybody. We'll put this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and keep her going. All right. Have an awesome day.
You too.
All right.
Bye
take care. All right. Ciao.